Hey cousins, I'm Shemaya. It's like papaya, except it's not, and this is Plot Twist Please, a place where I like to use pop culture in order to help make our brains a little cozier. Before we get to the main course of this delectable 5-star meal, let's do a little housekeeping, my darlings. That's right, my parents did in fact raise me. They certainly did. 3 things. 1, go ahead and hit that like button if you support what I'm doing here. It really helps boost the video and the algorithm /podcast. 2, hit that subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this. And 3, join the Plot Twist Please community by subscribing to the free newsletter or become a patron. Yes, love you, my patrons. I love you. For as low as $1.50 a month. That's right, we are affordable over here. We did it. Okay, now that your palate is warmed up, the candles are lit, and the freshly oven-baked bread is out on the table. Let's get into it. Main character energy. Now you know good and well that if we're going to deconstruct, analyze, or chop something up into digestible pieces, at the very least, we need to make sure we're talking about the same thing. So, I'm going to do what I usually do and break it down with the definition to start us off. Main character energy, as defined by dictionary.com, is a characteristic that describes how a person prioritizes themselves and their own happiness. It's typically associated with high self-worth, self-confidence, and self-love, #self-love. To help paint the picture, I'm going to ask you to visualize a confident person. What are they wearing? How is their hair styled? How do they walk down the street? Do they wear red lipstick? Do they have combat boots on? What does their voice sound like? What effect do they seem to have on other people? Do you have that image in your head? Probably seems like the kind of person you'd admire, right? Someone who marches to the beat of their own drum, has the kind of confidence you wish you had. This person, this image in your head, probably emulates some of your favorite influencers, celebrities, public figures, and even characters in fictional media. Now, for some regular civilians, and most of us are regular civilians, main character energy taps into an ethos that, sprinkled into mild situation, seems appealing. Be true to you. I get it. For others, though, it's an inspirational philosophy that evolves into an all-encompassing worldview. Now, in case you're new to the interwebs, I'm just gonna, let you know that there is something homegirl, Madame Interweb, doesn't like. And that thing is duality. No nuance November plus every other month of the year is kind of her vibe. Now, as someone whose hyperfixation on internet culture has cost me thousands of dollars. Thousands, babes. Thousands of dollars, hon. Yeah. No, I mean that. Yeah, my last laptop shut down and my phone battery literally swelled up because of all the content I made concerning internet culture. So yeah, I feel like I'm painfully aware of how things go around here. One keen observation that I've gathered is this. Someone who is the poster child for main character energy can also become the international spokesperson for main character syndrome. If it's not obvious, it's all right. Main character syndrome is the other side of the coin. It's evil stepsister, if you will, where main character energy can make one feel empowered and ready to grab their life by the horns. Main character syndrome can cause one to treat everyone else around them as if they are secondary characters in their story. It's all about their thoughts and feelings, and I'm trying not to be judgmental as I explain this, but whoever they may harm in the process tends to be collateral damage. It's very much feeding into that individualistic culture, which I'm going to dig into. Don't you worry, my liege. Don't you worry, my friend. I've got you. Now, just to be clear, just so I can be crystal, okay, I really want to make a distinction between elevating yourself and embracing yourself, feeling compassion towards yourself, really developing a healthy level of self-esteem from being reckless with other people and not being community-minded. Because I think a lot of the time, and I think specifically as it pertains to women or to marginalized people, there will be this attitude of, why aren't you grateful? You got crumbs, why aren't you grateful? Or how dare you elevate yourself? How dare you pat yourself on the back? How boisterous of you, how shameful for you to appreciate yourself so loudly and unabashedly. It's actually really interesting. I look at some responses to Niecy Nash's Emmy Award in her speech that she made, where she said, I would like to thank May. Girl, I felt that in my spirit. I really did feel that in my home on my side. Like, I really did. Because, and she even talked about this in interviews after the fact, there was nothing like spending many nights crying, spending many auditions, submissions, submitting your projects for all these larger companies, submitting your ideas to brands, or reading a monologue, or singing a song in front of people in an environment where the odds are stacked against you, where that if you do get through, it's like you're the only one. It's like you're the one who gets through, and it almost feels like dumb luck. I believe in dumb blessings, but it definitely does feel like sometimes if I do get this thing that I want, because I'm so disenfranchised, it's just by happenstance. Even though I've worked so hard, even though I've worked twice as hard as anybody else, it feels like sometimes you slip through the cracks and sometimes you don't. And that can feel very discouraging, especially if you've been in the industry for a while. Like if you've been in the entertainment industry, it can be extremely hard for Black women particularly. So that is why I think for a lot of people that speech was so powerful, for Black women and for non-Black women, I think, because if you're an artist, you can relate to that struggle, right? You can relate to putting yourself out there constantly and being rejected and having to find the fight in you to keep going, having to find that motivation, whether it's from your community or from yourself. But let me tell you something, all right? Babes, even if everybody else believes in you, sometimes that's not enough. Sometimes you have to be the one to carry yourself over the line. So many people would tell me how talented I was over the years, but for a long time I was still not convinced. And yes, I can say I'm talented. I can say that. You're allowed to say that. Black women should be able to be bold about how much they have to offer. We should be able to do that. I firmly believe that. And anyone who tries to stifle that, I think there's an issue. I think there's a real issue with people trying to stifle Black women who are loud about their accomplishments. Because if we're not loud about our accomplishments, who is going to be? If we're not saying, good job, me, who's going to do it? Who? Me searching for who? Squinting so hard I can't see in these false lashes. So yeah, I think that a lot was relatable for a lot of creatives and for a lot of marginalized people who have to fight against the current. It's just the way it be happening, and you just need that motivation. Now, speaking of artists, so I'd like to draw a distinction between that kind of self-appreciation and selfishness, because there is a distinction. We need to be clear. We need to be honest about that. Now, artists are especially susceptible to this kind of, quote, epidemic of individualism. And I don't think that's entirely our fault, to be honest. Okay, it is, but not all of it. For a long time, cultural critics, economic theorists, and even arts administrators have discussed individualism and collectivism as if they are in constant opposition to one another, as if they're enemies. Like they throw in dukes. But what if one of these things cannot exist without the other? The other day, I was reading an essay on individualism versus collectivism. Yes, in my spare time, because I'm cool. The essay pointed out how not only is individualism such a Western concept, but the idea of individualism being the antithesis of collectivism, the point of view that they are constantly in battle against one another, they're operating in opposition to one another, is the flaw in itself. Is a very flawed Western view. From Adam Smith's beliefs that individual ambition and a, quote, invisible hand will regulate the free market, to the age-old notion that every American has the same opportunities if they individually pull themselves up by the bootstraps. The concept runs deep. To be even more specific, the concept is that, 1, individualism cannot coexist with collectivism, and 2, in a fistfight, individualism would win. Colloquially, one might say, I'm about to throw these invisible hands. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Actually, you're welcome. Yes. And if you're still here after this point, you belong here. Welcome. If that hasn't deterred you, congratulations. Now, I've linked the essay in the Google Doc below, by the way. Go nuts, go crazy. Oh, crazy is a very ableist term. just do your thing, do your thing, wham bam, thank you ma'am, and a partridge in a pear tree. Now that we've talked about the artiste, let's talk about the art itself. Now I forgot to tell y'all something. You should know, before we move on to this next section, that I am a self-proclaimed movie snob. Yes I am, and I'm not ashamed. I am an artsy brat. I'm hard to please. That is a badge that I wear with honor, quite frankly. But it's because I really do value intention. I am deeply invested in rewarding good, sound, focused, creative choices. And, I like the weird stuff. Of course. Who do you think I am? Keep it weird. But make it weird for a reason. I think that aesthetically, consumers of media, of movies, especially in this era where the world is crashing around us and we are really just seeking escapism and we just need flashing lights in front of us so that we are distracted from the turmoil that's happening in the world around us. I get it, right? I get it. But in this era, it seems that it takes very little to get people excited. People get distracted, in my humble opinion, by bright colors, symbolism, and or shock value. But I, at the risk of sounding like a hipster from Tumblr circa 2009, require a lot more in order to be impressed. And honestly, in every aspect of life, it takes a lot to impress me, but I don't think that's a negative thing. Again, know your worth. I get excited by things that make me revisit, reevaluate, and question my ethics or how I consume art in general. Some of my favorite movies, my favorite pieces of media completely go against the grain of what the actual format of the medium is that they're presented in. I am also really interested and deeply invested in the kind of creative storytelling that shines light on individuals who I'm not used to hearing from. I'm interested in the stories that never get told. I mean, that might seem like a pretty vanilla statement. Like, who isn't interested in stories that aren't being told? Who wants to hear stories they've heard 1,000 times? Of course. But I really am interested in the people on the margins who are put on a screen for quote representation, but they never say a word. But we never hear from their perspective. That's how I feel about a lot of autistic representation, to be honest. A lot of it is, hey, look at that autistic person, or my sister is autistic, or my brother, or my son, but I'm not used to hearing from the autistic person. And it's like, we have thoughts. We have inner monologues too. We have feelings and desires too. We have goals, and some of us aren't good people. Like, I love the idea of looking at disabled people as completely flawed humans. And I don't know if a lot of mainstream media is ready for that. I think that what makes mainstream media consumers feel comfortable is the inspiration part, is the part where you look at the disabled person and you say, I feel so good now that I've watched a disabled person exist. All right, gonna go about my day. But it's like, what's the next step after you are aware that we exist? What's the next step after that? And sometimes that next step is uncomfortable. Sometimes it's not just about feeling good because people are getting represented in media. Sometimes it's about interrogating your own beliefs. And I don't think a lot of people go to the movies necessarily to do that. I do. Don't get it twisted. I do. But something about going deeper is intimidating to a lot of people because they're people. It's not that they're monsters. It's just that they're people who like what's comfortable. And so I do have some compassion for them in that regard. But I can't help but want more from the things that I consume. I can't help but want more. Like, I'm not saying that I like super deep stuff all the time. Like, I like to watch a YouTube video about what is the worst date you've ever, like, what, I don't know. I like to watch that stuff too, right? I'm chill. I promise I'm chill. I'm a chill girl. I'm not, but it's okay. But yeah, I the stuff that really drives my creative passions and really gets the juices flowing is the stuff that makes me question everything. I don't know what that is. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm a sadist. I don't know. Maybe I'm a, what is it, masochist. I don't know. And I'm not someone who will always go for like the deep, heavy movie. But it's the one that I want to talk about. It's the stuff that I want to support. Even though I do think that people, particularly minorities, deserve stuff that is regular. We deserve to do well at stuff that is just fun, and to enjoy things that are just fun, and to just enjoy lightness in life. But I think there's a certain kind of privilege that comes with the perspective of only wanting to be faced with the kind of media that makes you feel good and never going beyond that. I think there's a kind of privilege that comes with that perspective. And you know what else? I think I have this kind of dire perspective on art because I know how powerful art can be. You know, I know how every decision you make as a producer, as a director, as an actor, as a screenwriter, as a cinematographer can tell a story all on its own. Something I really enjoyed about the Black Panther franchise was that the costuming, the hairstyling, so many details represented this kind of marriage between West African roots and Afrofuturism. To me, that was a very intentional choice that went beyond looking cool. Who you hire, for example, your market research, whose voices are elevated in your script, the cinematography, how you style the actor's hair, the costuming, how much, quote, bass you put in your character's voice as the actor. Like, these things can matter. And call me Scrooge McDuck, but sometimes something I don't love is when intentional choices are put on the same level or held to the same kind of esteem as cool effects thrown in purely for shock value. Like, look, call me a narc. Call me Urko, okay? Call me a nerd, shove me in a locker, but I like when things make sense. And I like when the things that make sense are rewarded. You know, as for in Oscar season, I like the sprinkles. I do. But give me the cupcake, please. Give me the batter. And going even beyond personal taste, I think making art that is self-flagellatory or singularly focused on the artist's experience isn't necessarily the goal. Or if it is, I think it shouldn't be. I think we might need to revisit that one in post, in the editing process, you know. To be clear, I think a lot of artistry does need help, does need to focus on the self, figuring out your point of view, refining your taste over time. This is all necessary. However, with the big however, art that is just for you and art that is for someone else to consume are in different categories. If your aim is for your art to be perceived, then you need to bear some responsibility for what you are communicating with your art and with your audience. Of course, you can't anticipate every perspective that people might take, but no one is expecting you to be Raven Baxter, honey. Okay? Relax. Good art to me shows more symmetry than not when it comes to what is intended by the artist and what is perceived by the consumer. Intention, perception. I think you need both. But hey, maybe that's just my liberal arts degree showing. How embarrassing. Oh my God. How unseemly. I'd argue that the self cannot exist without the collective interests of the whole. If you think about it, what are individuals made up of even? Veins, bones, organs, different kinds of systems that are reliant on one another to survive. And when you go way back in time, you know, before Olivia Rodrigo, love you girl, you can see that the point of art was to connect to something or someone outside of yourself, to tell stories of civilizations, of families, of ancestors, of wars, of love, of triumph. The whole point was to communicate. I fear that if we let go of that collective aspect, we lose something really crucial. Anyways, if you haven't fallen asleep yet, thanks for tuning in. Leave a review. Feedback is good for me. It's good for my soul. I can take it. She's a tough girl, but she's a soft girl. Be blessed. Stay weird. Bye.